Going live.
Are
Hey,
you sure?
everybody. Sorry
Okay.
about that, Sharon. I kind of jumped the gun and hit the live button. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most amazing show, the best darn show on the internet, the Over Sharon Show. We're a few minutes late, but it's okay because we set it for 2:22 and now we have two viewers. So it's amazing. What were you going to say, though, Sharon? Was there anything? I do have the
I
quote.
was just gonna make sure that you had everything
Yeah.
correctly set
Oh,
up,
yeah.
your
Yeah.
mic and your Wi-Fi connection and everything.
I do got it. Oh, you know what? Actually, that's a good thing you said that because the Wi-Fi, I could plug the antenna in quickly. So anyway, we could talk. It's okay. We chat a little bit in the beginning. We'll get some people in there because we had a little. I don't know what's going on YouTube. Maybe it's my fault. It probably was, but we decided to change the time today, everybody. And when I went in the YouTube Studio app, I changed the time, but it said it to private or it didn't. It wasn't set. I don't know. It was weird. But
The
anyway,
YouTubes.
we we got it all straightened out. I think it works better on the browser feature. All right, there's the internet. It's cranking. Let's go. I'm going to read today's quote, which I sent to Sharon today on Instagram. And we were like, hey, let's use this because it fits perfectly with what we talk about. Everything that happens to you is your teacher. The secret is to learn to sit at the feet of your own life and be taught by it. And that's Polly B. Barons.
Yeah.
And I
I
was,
am
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just I'm am I fully live oh no, sorry, you made the screen like it always does that when you share, then it like expands my screen to full screen. Sorry. Um
Oh, I see what you're
yeah,
saying.
I've been it's just been an interesting several weeks. Um,
Yeah.
just having to always look on the bright side of things and be look for the silver lining, shall we say.
Yeah, you've had a lot of teachers come your way in the past at least month or so, if you choose to look at it that way. And that's the great thing is things happen to things happen to everybody, right? Everybody
Yeah.
has stuff that they don't want to happen. And I think the difference between people who are depressed, we'll say, or just look at life in a negative way, and the difference between the positive, people look at it in a positive way is really just what we talk about every day. It's if what they're focused on in the moment on what it's and when it's going on, or even after. Sometimes in the moment it's hard to be focused if something crazy or tragic is going on, but afterwards you can always reframe it, um, so you're not a victim. That's really huge. I think it's one of the main messages here of the Oversharing show is are you really a victim? We're just asking ourselves questions. Are we really a victim when something happens? Let's see. Maybe we could be. You could be. But and in most situations, we just feel like a victim. I was having this conversation, I think, with Elizabeth. I don't know if it was it was just with Elizabeth, yes. And I think something happened. Somebody got like mad in traffic or at a store. We saw someone get mad and freak out at somebody or whatever. And I was just saying how people just go around with all this anger or whatever it is underneath. And most of it is anger at their life, or they can't change the way things are, or somebody in particular, or whatever it is. And a lot of it is connected with stuff that happened to us when we were younger. We hold on to this anger. And then, and I know this because I was guilty, and hey, I probably still might be guilty this once in a while, right? Where you're going along in public or something and someone does something, bumps into you or cuts you in line or, does something, and then you feel like you just have this license to freak out on them, and then you just unload all your stuff onto them, all your anger and your bullshit, whatever. You kind of will just freak out on them. And what I found is, and the reason I was talking to Elizabeth about this is, like, just because somebody does that doesn't mean that you have to accept it that way. They're just giving you energy or attention. You could look at it that way. It's a currency, right? So if they give it to you in that manner, you don't have to take it that way. And in fact, when you act opposite of the way that they want you to act, say they want you to get mad too, if you act either happy or whatever, it has a profound effect. You sometimes they'll just walk away or leave you alone. Sometimes it even makes them madder, right? And sometimes it just diffuses them and they'll be really chill. There was this story. Do you remember that story? We might have talked about it, how there was this like martial arts master, this little Asian guy or whatever, and he was on a train and there was this big guy and he was like drunk and he was freaking out and it looked like he was about to start a fight. In this master of, I don't know what it was, maybe he was coming from like a martial arts competition or whatever. Instead of fighting the guy or anything stuff, he just started to talk to him and the guy ended up just crying. His rage just left him and he just started to cry. And I think because, we talk about how you can evacuate your cockpit and all that stuff. And you kind of, whenever you're doing something that's a reaction, it's really not even like you're doing it. You're just like taking a back seat and there's another presence or vibration, or could it be a demon or whatever is controlling your actions. And I think when a situation like that happens, when you just talk to somebody like that, or you diffuse the situation, it's kind of like how boiling water freezes faster than normal room temperature water. It's like they just lose all their heat right away. It just goes away and there's an instant flip, and then the person might start crying or whatever. It's actually a technique that I heard is like if somebody comes at you or for no reason, especially if it's somebody you don't know or whatever, and they want to fight you, or they're trying to start shit, like if they're drunk or whatever, you just say something super confusing to them, and sometimes it could actually diffuse the situation. Like, oh, your uncle's brother was my niece's nephew or something like that, and then they're just like, and sometimes it takes them out of that. Anyway, that was a nice long rant, but I forgot how I got started on that. I think it was because we were talking about how amazing we are on this show, and then we just kept going from there. What do you
I
think?
was going to say it reminded me of Ram Dass because
Oh yeah,
it's very much something that he might say. Because he does say things like that, that we can use people and events and things like that as teachers. I think he says people, right? We can use people as teachers.
as a teaching,
Um,
I think his
or as a
only
teaching.
I heard
That's
it recently.
right.
He's like, I take a teaching. I go here, I take a teaching. And he said, everybody could be a teacher or a teaching or your guru, right? For
Right.
him, he had a specific guy in India, this guy who was a little crazy guy, but he was like, whatever. So
Yeah.
he had one specific guy, but what he's saying is you could use anybody as your guru, and they don't even have to know they're your guru. It's somebody that pisses you off. That's your work. It could be, you don't
Yeah.
have to, but if you're at that level and you're looking for something new, or you're at a plateau, that's what you go for, right? You not that you look for those situations, but you just don't try to reject them or push them away. You just accept them fully when they happen and you see what you can learn from them, right?
Yeah. And I think in love, service, and devotion, and the spirit, the surrender or ultimate surrender, whatever the name of that lecture series is called, um, he talks about how I think he says to the audience, like, I'm your teaching right now, or something like that. I could be your teaching right now. Um, at least that's what I remember. But that, I mean, I don't think that was an experiments in truth because I haven't heard that one in a while. And I only heard that one one time, but
Yeah, I think you're right. It is, but for me, it's like I just heard it the other day.
I
I was like,
know.
yeah, the other day, and my friend's like, you mean like 2 months ago? I'm like, yeah, the other day.
Yeah. My nephews, when they were little, nephews and nieces, they made up, I think one of them made up a word for like what is any day before today. And any day before today was lasterday. So it's not yesterday, but it's lasterday. So like lasterday we went to the zoo. I mean, they were like 2 or 3 when they made this word up. Lasterday we went to the zoo, and it's like it could have been a year ago. It could have been like 6 months ago.
It's hilarious.
But
Kids are
yeah,
the
I thought it was
masters
a
of
great
smart.
word.
That is good. If you get into the Urban Dictionary,
Right.
last your day, any day before today.
Yeah. It was
When were you born?
lasterday.
I was born yesterday.
Yes. I feel like it just happened lasterday.
Well, I like it because it takes the concept of the past and it makes it into one thing.
Yes.
It's just the past,
That's
right?
what kids do. They do
Yeah.
that. They don't see it as like, oh, it's a certain point in time. It's like, oh, it was sometime before today. Like I know it was definitely sometime before today.
It's
And that's like one big blob.
so funny.
The blob
I
of
love it.
Lasterday.
The blob of yesterday. Exactly. To yeah, it's crazy how kids are they're just so resourceful and
Hmm.
creative when they're not stomped on.
Yeah.
Do you have a card for today, by the way? Did we talk about that?
I have not pulled it, but I can.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, you could get it ready and
Yeah. I'm
um
ready. I'll just grab one right now. Oh, I love this one. It's number 45, Gathering Together.
oh, here, let me
So I'm sorry that it, pardon
oh,
me.
yeah.
So it's lake above, earth below. And it's like these rocks, these cliffs with waterfalls coming down into like a little, small little lake type thing. Let me see what 45 says. I almost nearly opened up exactly to 45. That's crazy.
It's cool.
I opened to the second page of 45. Okay. Gathering together, lake above, earth below. The power of gathering together is represented by a rally where each individual's strength is magnified by the collective power of a community. For instance, history has shown that mass movements can bring about stable, ordered, and durable conditions for the better. This reading may be pointing to an auspicious time for large group events or undertakings. The guiding force of a shared vision is essential to align unified forces and keep your people advancing toward a common goal. Another image is that of a lake or a basin filling with water. Just as the fullness of the lake can bring good fortune to all in its realm, it can also overflow, leading to disaster. In a time of gathering together, it is essential that precautions against unforeseen dangers be considered, along with efforts to advance the common good along a clearly charted course. Much of human misfortune comes from unexpected events for which we are ill prepared. When gathered together with others, we are more powerful, even if in some ways we are also more vulnerable. Any time of gathering together is a time of potentially great power, which can be either positive or negative. Everything is magnified when masses of people join together for a single purpose. When many people unite behind a single goal or strong vision, it is wise to take personal precautions protecting your reasonable self interests because these can easily be lost in the melee of the crowd. Is it Melee? Is that, am I
Melee.
pronouncing that? Melee?
Melee.
Melee. Melee. Also, melee. Melee. May. Melee. It's like three different pronunciations. Cool. Melee. It means a confused hand to hand fight or struggle among several people. It also means confusion, turmoil, and jumble.
So like
And
malaise.
that's different, right?
Yeah, I think it comes from the same root though, probably. That's more like a an inner state, I think, right? Like when you're feeling like a malaise or
I think that means being tired. It's Malaise, I think. A
oh, okay.
Malaise is a condition of general bodily weakness or discomfort, off marking the onset of a disease. A
Ooh.
vague or unfocused feeling of mental uneasiness, lethargy, or discomfort. That's malaise.
What about
Um,
mayonnaise? I'm just
and auspicious, I wanted to look that up because I kind of was vague on the meaning. Is promising success. It's propitious, opportune, favorable, on auspicious occasion. It's also favored by fortune, prosperous and fortunate. Fortunate, not
Glad
unfortunate.
you looked that
Fortunate.
up. I thought it was a little different than you.
Yeah,
Learn something new every day.
we do. Joe's in. Blue Kachina, welcome.
What's up, everybody? How is everyone doing?
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Love
We're
last
just,
day. That's right, Spoons.
oh yeah, Spoons loves Laster
Blue Kachina cards, man.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I mean, I was going to, but we just kept talking, so
Oh yeah, I figured you were gonna.
um
Yeah, I ran out of steam with what I was talking about.
I was gonna say something now. I can't remember what it was.
About the chat for Spoons.
No, about the what we were reading or something.
Oh yeah.
Um
I could say something. Maybe you could remember. What they said about not being prepared, like when something, when something happens, but the way they said it, or the way the book said it, was like when something happens that people don't want to happen or something like that, right? And they were
mhm.
kind of talking about that when things happen that you're not wanting to happen. But it's a good time also for people to come together. And like what happened, but in Texas, I guess there was like a crazy hurricane that came through, and there's like even inland they lost power, but you can see
Mm,
like a lot of people were coming together. So I think that's what happens a lot when these disasters or whatever. People usually come together. That's what I see. I mean, yeah, you do get like Hurricane Katrina, stuff like that that happens, but I bet a lot more good things happened during Katrina that we didn't hear about.
could be, yeah, for sure.
For some
Yeah.
reason, the media likes to focus on the negative things. I don't understand
Yeah, well, I wonder
why.
why. I wonder why.
I got by the way, I got a new business plan model. I'm gonna fabricate bulletproof vests for your ear, like bulletproof ear covers. I'm gonna become a millionaire. All right,
Sorry,
well,
say that again. You're gonna what?
I'm gonna manufacture or come up with a bulletproof ear cover, like a cover for your ear that's bulletproof. Bulletproof headphones. All right.
Oh my God.
'Twas a melee of wind and rain. Oh, there you go. Melee. Looks
Yeah,
better.
thanks for reminding us to use the word in a sentence to remember what it means.
Yeah,
The melee.
so true. Can you use it in a sentence?
Yeah.
Crockstable is a hard word to spell.
Check it
So
out. Here's an
Mark,
example
they're
that
like, what's the word? They're like croxidifol. And he's like, all right, because they're like in fourth grade. He's like, can you use it in a sentence? And they're like, croxidifol is a hard word to spell.
no.
Little throwback for my and he's like, see, and they're like, eh. And it's just wrong. It's like,
So the example that dictionary.com uses for melee is the melee of Christmas shopping. Confusion, turmoil, jumble,
hey
the
Trish.
struggle, hand-to-hand fight or struggle among several people.
Yeah, Black Friday melee.
There you go. There you go. That's a good way to remember it. Black Friday melee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's another South Park reference. Black Friday Bungaroo. All right, I'm done. My for all day.
Do you
Um,
have your
Dow slides.
Dow slides open?
Do the Dow now. All right, everybody, we're going to talk about that Tao Te Ching today. That's what we're doing for verses 47, 48, which are great because 47 is nothing but an 11 in disguise, and 48 is just a 12, and they're really just a 2 and a 3. I mean, if you think about it. So, so we're going to go through everybody and read verses 47. We have 4 different versions. If you're following along with us, if you're new here, hey, welcome. We break down 4 different verses of the Tao Te Ching by 4 different people. I'm sorry, four different interpretations of each verse. So this one's verse 47 by Stephen Mitchell from 1988. Without opening your door, you can open your heart to the world. Without looking out your window, you can see the essence of the Tao. The more you know, the less you understand. The
Hmm,
master arrives without leaving, sees the light without looking, achieves without doing a thing.
nice. Dwight Goddard from 1919 entitles this verse Seeing the Distant. Not going out of the door, I have knowledge of the world. Not peeping through the window, I perceive heaven's Tao. The more one wanders to a distance, the less he knows. Therefore, the wise man does not wander about, but he understands. He does not see things, but he defines them. He does not labor, yet he completes.
Right, Stan Rosenthal, nice and short today for verse 37, Stan, from 1984. Discovering the distant. The Tao may be known and observed without the need of travel. The way of the heavens might be well seen. Oh, you know what? I forgot I was going to highlight these. The way of the heavens might be well seen without looking through a window. The further one travels, the less one knows. Oh, it's like the grass is always greener. We'll save that. We'll save that. So without looking, the sage sees all, and by working without self-advancing thought, he discovers the wholeness of the Tao.
Aleister Crowley from 1920s entitles this verse The Vision of the Distant. And it looks like Stan Rosenthal also used the word distant.
Interesting.
One need not pass his threshold to comprehend all that is under heaven, nor to look out from his lattice to behold the Tao celestial. Nay, but the farther a man goeth, the less he knoweth.
Wow. He's a poet, and he didn't even know it.
Yes, I saw that. The sages acquired their knowledge without travel. They named all things aright without beholding them, and acting without aim, fulfilled their wills.
Nice. It's this one is it seems that they're all pretty consistent with
Yeah,
versions. When I mean, we're going to get to the breakdown
they
next,
seem
everybody, but
pretty.
it seems that they're all pretty. I like that,
Yeah.
which leads me to believe that it's a pretty simple message. Um, Even though it might not be simple to find it, but it's just there's just a real simplicity to the message itself.
Yeah.
If
Could it be that the way it was written in Chinese, it was simple to understand that this is kind of what it was saying in general?
it could be. All right, so let's go back and break it down.
I think it's so crazy that Stephen Mitchell and Dwight Goddard pretty much say the same thing in that first line. And even the two other guys, Stan Rosenthal and Aleister Crowley, don't say that. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, they all use the word distant in their title too.
Yeah, true.
All right, so without opening your door, you can open your heart to the world. So I feel like that's just kind of a statement to let people know that you don't actually have to go out and be some do-gooder or whatever and run around and like love everybody like Jesus did. You could just open your heart at home by yourself, maybe through meditation. Hey, maybe this is like a
Ooh,
you know a reference to meditation or something.
could be for sure. And it makes me think of also that verse in Romans. I think it's like Romans 2:15 that like it's already written in your heart. Like pretty much morals are already there. You don't have to like go elsewhere and
Yeah,
look for them.
I like
Like
that.
you inherently know what's good and what's bad. You can't like pretend you don't know.
And it also kind of like building on that and what I said, it kind of makes me think that it's like you don't have to go out and do good actions to be a good person. Because what do people, when you see people who like run charities and stuff, these philanthropists, normally they have something to hide,
Well,
so
it's very showy, right? They do it
yeah,
with like a showy attitude. And even Jesus was like, if you're going to give to the poor or whatever, do it without telling it on the streets. Like, do it without telling anybody.
just give. Pull this back up. And then without looking out your window, you can see the essence of the Tao. So there you go. You don't have to look outside yourself. It's all within, like Sharon just said. The truth is written in your heart. And the more you know, the less you understand. And I feel like it's a reference to the brain versus the heart, because you can know all the knowledge, you can know everything, but it doesn't mean you're going to understand why people are doing things. You're not going to understand their actions, which might lead you to judge them or to take things personally that they say, instead of having compassion and empathizing with them and understanding or comprehending them, right? We don't have to say understand. Uh, I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
So if you could know everything, I know that this person is uh
XYZ.
gaslighting me, and I know that they're, you know, engaging in all this terrible behavior because they're afraid to look within, and they should look within, and what the hell's wrong with them, and why don't they do the work? Ah, is it about that though, or is it about, are you just doing the work, right? Um, I think this is something I said last week, in Blue, shout out to Blue. He highlighted this timestamp from our episode 116. Go check that out. Shout out to our last week's episode, What's Going On, we called it, where he said, or I was saying how, and this is something I heard from Ramdas, it's like uh it's up to the most conscious person in a relationship, or in any interaction between two people. It's up to the most conscious person in that interaction to be, the adult in
Bigger
this,
person.
to be the
Yeah.
bigger person, and to not judge, and to have compassion, and to, it reminds me of that meme where the master was like, the secret to happiness is to just agree with everybody. And the guy's like, that's stupid. No, he's like, what's the secret to happiness? So I just agree with assholes. And the guy's like, that's stupid. And he's like, I agree.
I heard that. I can't remember where, but maybe you said it.
I agree. You're right, man. Fuck these people. That's so dumb. So that's really what this reminds me of, because the more you know with your mind, you're going to analyze and break it down, and it's going to lead you to not have compassion, I think.
Wow. That's funny. Like just what did he say? Agreeing with what
Oh,
does
an
he say?
asshole. Yeah, it's something like, the secret to happiness. I just agree with assholes. And the guy's like, that's stupid. And he's like, I agree.
Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy or content? Like,
Inside, right? Would you rather have like
yeah,
an inner peace or an inner balance, or be right, right?
yeah. Would you rather like feel like you have to prove yourself and be right to the people around you, or would you rather have inner peace?
Yeah,
it's that simple.
yeah, it really is. And and
God.
it's hard probably for everybody in their own
Yeah.
individual way. But the reason it's hard for me is because growing up, I've always felt like people tried to make me look stupid. And I used to fall prey to that. And I used to like question myself, well, maybe I am stupid
Yeah.
when it comes to this, or maybe I don't know the best or whatever. And so when somebody would question me, when I knew I was right, I would get defensive, and I'd be like, fuck you, this is right. And now I'm just like, ah,
Yeah.
maybe you're right. Maybe they are
I
right.
I have a similar I have a similar
Maybe
trigger.
dinosaurs were real. I don't fucking know, dude. I wasn't
Yeah.
there. Like,
I I have a similar trigger, and I think mine is more about like people I think it bends more toward people telling me how to live my life because they think they know better for me than I know better for me. And that's what ends up making me get triggered.
It's like they're micromanaging your life.
Yeah.
I get it
Yeah.
100%. And that's some of the work that I've been going through recently, actually.
Me
And
too.
all you do is you just go back to what we said at the beginning of the episode, right? You're like, where it doesn't matter, it's the only reason that I feel most people are trying to tell you what to do is it comes usually from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid for you, so they have fear for
Mm-hmm.
you. So they're just trying to unload their fear onto you, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
up to you whether you want to acknowledge his fear or just tell yourself, say, hey, this person just loves me and they just want the best for me. And they just don't know how to express it. And this is the best way they can express it. And I mean, I could say that now on a podcast, but the next time it happens in real life, I might get triggered. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the important thing, and this
Like,
is something we harp on, is just not to be hard on yourself. If you do get triggered,
yeah.
just be like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever.
Exactly. And
I'm
that's
still,
also difficult.
yeah. This is the high level work, and this is the work that
Yeah.
really pays off. It seems so like from the outside, people would be like, ah, whatever. But I'm telling people know in this, people in this chat or that watch this show, they know this is the stuff they've done in their life. I mean, I get a lot of this inspiration from our group chats. I was reading through the group chat that we have between with Spoons and Joe. We're talking about some future episodes, perhaps that we might be doing. And what Joe is talking about, what he's doing, and what Spoons. I mean, I'm just like, wow, it inspires me so much because I see that, and I'm like, this is great. If these guys can do it, I can do it too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We're all doing this together, sharing our experiences. It's just to have that camaraderie. It's great. So shout out to you guys. I don't think there's certain people that are the backbone of the show. We would say this before. They're like the behind the scenes producers, whatever, and they don't even realize it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's one thing to know it and to acknowledge it. I mean, it's basically the first step, right? But it's one thing to say, yeah, this is what you got to do. But it's a completely different thing to actually do it because that's the harder part. And like
It's
Joe says, it
knowing
really isn't hard. It's easy, but it's hard because we're so accustomed to our habits and our thoughts and
our
what we
patterns,
think are our thoughts. Are what?
patterns,
Yes.
the trigger. Where it's
The
like
triggers,
comforting.
the patterns, yes, they're kind of like ingrained. And to change the, what would you call that? To change the trajectory or even the momentum of that is what is difficult at times. So, like, I can tell you all day long that this is what needs to happen, but I'm working on it too. I'm not telling you because I've already done it and I'm done and
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm telling you because I know I'm working on it. And
there's
it's
always other levels, right? There's
yeah,
always another breakthrough you can make. That's what I was just talking with this last night about Elizabeth. I'm like, people think they're there, people think they did the work, whatever. It's like, no, there's always another breakthrough that you can have. I feel like until you could just ascend physically, like maybe that's the last step, like Jesus in the Bible, you just ascend right up, right? But you have to keep having these deaths. And actually, that's symbolized in the story that everybody knows about Easter. Jesus dies, and what happens? 3 days later, he rises from the grave, and then he lives for a little while among the people, and then he ascends to heaven. Well, what is that? Nothing more than a dark night of the soul, right? If you just take that as allegory, right? Maybe Jesus didn't die, but maybe it's like a dark night of the soul, right? You were an addict. Now you don't want to do that behavior anymore. You had a rock bottom moment. That part of you died. Like I talk about my example, my friend that was a heroin addict. He almost OD'd in a parking lot and he woke up and he's like, my kids, what the fuck? He's like, my kids are going to grow up without a dad. Like he had this realization. That's the death. And then you spend the 3 days. That's like the dark night of the soul where you're going through things and you have to figure out and become a new you. And then you emerge from the tomb like Jesus did, right? And then you spread the message around the people. And then what? It's another one. You have another death, boom, and then you ascend or whatever, right? Your consciousness ascends, and it's just like this cycle. I think that could keep happening. Wow, I just decoded the. Well, I'm sure people decoded it before, but I don't think I've ever made that connection with the death of Jesus.
Yeah.
But no, what you were saying is spot on. And what I wanted to add to that was like you said, you could know what you're supposed to do. And that's just like this verse. It brings us right back, right? Knowing here, I'll even bring it up and then we
You
could
could, what is it? It's like intellectual knowledge. You could
yes.
intellectually
And I
know,
have it highlighted, right? The
but
more you know,
it's the intellectual knowing is not the same as the true inner knowing. The true inner knowing is more like a
experiential.
piece, like experiential, yes.
And like you said, a piece. And what we're talking about here with these triggers, because like when I first started to realize I had an issue with anger and I wanted to work on it, I would just try to stop the anger itself, right? Like it would come out and I try to hold it in. I try to go for a walk or let it out in other ways, like punch a pillow, all these things. And yes, that's more healthy than keeping it in. But the other way to do it, because when you're doing that, you're in the realm of effects already. You're already in the realm of the physical and it's here and you're trying to battle it. But the secret really is to get behind that and to go into the realm of causes and like what's causing it. And it really is just to look at things differently and to have compassion and to understand this person that's triggering you. Maybe they had an abusive dad. Maybe their dad left them. Maybe they were tied to a freaking radiator. Who knows? It's this compassion that allows that and to not take things personally. And that's when you get that true knowing of, oh yeah, this is really what's going on. And that's when you start to feel more of that inner peace and the anger doesn't come up as much. And you really we always say, you got to start where you're at, and expressing anger is way better than holding it in. So if that's where you are now, I'm not telling you that it's, you're wrong or whatever, but there's just other steps. And then after that, there's probably another step, you just keep digging down these rabbit holes. And these are the rabbit holes that we suggest you go down. It doesn't matter whose ear got shot in a picture of a bullet. They got a picture of a bullet.
I
And
know.
it's great. Isn't it what an amazing
Priceless.
realm we live in? That's why it's hard to become a comedian, because how do you compete with news? We got a picture of a bullet. It's like, all right. What kind of camera is that? What anyway. So that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about, right? And that's another example. You could let something like that trigger you. And I'm seeing a lot of these psyops. So many people are getting triggered. And the solution, whatever the path we're on, I won't say the solution, make claims, right? But the path that we're on is just to have compassion and all that stuff.
absolutely.
So,
Joe says in the chat, anger is tough if you're around other people. When you let it arise and fizzle and someone even tries to talk to you, it's kind of hard not to express it. Haha. True.
yes, and
And
we
that's why you have to have compassion for yourself later, because it's really just a trigger, a response that developed sometime probably in your youth. And the only way that it will clear or go away is if you allow yourself to comprehend why it's happening, and you go through that rabbit hole that we're talking about, where you first you have to be compassionate on yourself, and then you have to ask yourself, what is it, what is at the root of my anger, my sadness, or my disappointment? What is the root? And it's self inquiry, and it might help you get to the root of it and root it out, as they say.
yeah, and
But I'm working on it too, so it's not easy.
that's the root. Anger is the root of your anger. Yeah, that's the root. Yeah, and it was caused by anger. It's so funny. And that's the other thing too. It's not like you really have to, what Sharon said was great, but some people are like, well, they want you to go back throughout your childhood and relive these things and try to figure them out and stuff. And
You don't have to.
yeah, I don't even, honestly, I don't think that's necessary because, like, for my own example in my life, I just came to the realization slowly but surely that I just had an issue with feminine, with the sacred feminine. And I was just trying to hurt it in any way that I can. And I mean, was that because of abandonment issues from my mom when I was growing up, or something happened to me? I don't know the specific thing that happened, but now I know that's what it is, and I can have compassion for myself, and I can say, "Oh, I get it. I just wanted to hurt women, not a physical. Well, not like in a physical, like I'm beating them, more like emotionally, right? Because I felt like, oh, if I was doing that, then I don't have to get hurt. If I'm the one who's hurting people, then I'm not going to get hurt, kind of thing. And do I have to, like I said, dive down and figure out exactly what it was? I don't know.
No,
Probably
but
not.
that by you mentioning that, that's probably enough, right? Going back,
Yeah, yeah.
that even that depth is enough.
Because it could bring up more like victim stuff in. But if you do remember it, it's different. If you do remember the experience and you had a trauma, then you can have compassion for yourself, I guess, in that moment. It's very nuanced. Everything's different, but I feel like a lot of people get tied up on what happened to them in the past, and then they kind of use that as a crutch or an excuse. And at some point, it's like, well, yeah, maybe your mom or your dad was a piece of shit, but it's on you now to be the adult and not let their behavior affect them, because you're just going to become them. And I was watching Dexter. Oh my god, that show is crazy. He talks like, there's this one scene he's talking to this guy whose brother was killed and all this stuff. It's too hard to explain, but the guy had all these anger issues, and that's exactly what he said. He's like, it's like passed down from your dad, because it came up, something happened, like one of them pushed the dad down the stairs and he almost died or whatever when they were younger. So they were telling the story. And he's like, you're pushing that on. He's like, that's just anger from your dad. And he's like, you could realize it, figure out what it is and work on it, or pass it on to your kids. And I'm like, like, this is on a Showtime show where they were just showing boobs and we had to fast forward it. And now we have this great message about, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I think it really, what it is the truth. It just sells. So they have these shows like this, they just throw
They
the,
hide it in there. They like
and it's,
put
yeah.
little like nuggets.
And if you're
But
woke to all this stuff, if you're an awake being who sees these shows aren't gonna affect you. Like, I think you could watch things and decode them or whatever. If you feel like whatever. Not telling you to go watch TV, but some people be like, oh, it's evil, it's all bad, it's terrible, you shouldn't watch it. But
I think people go through that phase. I think it's a phase. Like you have to go through the phase of like, oh, this is terrible, this is horrible, all these people are evil. You have to kind of go there first before you can balance out, right? It's like in one extreme to the other. You got to get to the other extreme to kind of
like
realize that
yeah, you're
that's,
like polarizing, right? You're like bouncing
yeah,
back and
that's like
forth. Yeah.
another extreme, and you're like, wait, that's an extreme too. Maybe I don't have to be so extreme. And you can kind of like a pendulum does, you just kind of end up balancing out because you can see both extremes. And I've seen both extremes on many different levels, when it comes to like food, right? Like, oh, it's all evil, they're poisoning us. Okay, yeah, I get it. So it's like, okay, be extreme with how you eat. So no, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that. But then at some point you're like, in some cases, like, how can you avoid it? Sometimes you don't even know. Like, so what do? You just do the best you can. And then you just do the best you can. Like, you can't be like so rigid about everything, because that's also another extreme. Joe is really writing up in here.
Yeah, and quickly to add to that, and then when you realize you mess up or you do your best, you just be good, easy on yourself. You laugh about it. You're like, oh, I fucked up. This is hilarious. I mean, this is the way I do it. Everyone has their own way, but, and I was talking about this. It's so synchronistic to all the stuff I was talking to Elizabeth last night. Maybe it's just because of what we're into, right? But I was like, when sometimes I laugh like randomly, I'll mess up. Like, you always hear me laugh, right? I'm like, that's me laughing at myself. I'm like, oh, what a silly goose you are, Brandon. You did this. You made a mistake. You fucking whatever it is, right? Like, so, when I'm DJing, I was DJing with Dwayne the other day, and he has like a little bit different of a soundboard. It's newer, and it's the same, it's Pioneer, the same brand that we've loved forever. But the faders, I don't like them. I'm like, oh man, I'm just gonna keep my old one. But anyway, I was doing something, and I have giant hands, if you haven't noticed. And I went to turn something down, but I inadvertently turned it up really quick for like a second when it was supposed to be quiet. So like we heard noise, and then I just turned it down, and I just laughed. And Dwayne's like, what was that? Or he kind of laughed too. But I previously, when I was new, I'd like be hard on myself and beat myself up over it and all this stuff. And now I'm just like, what? Like these people don't care. They probably thought it was funny.
One
You know?
little mistake, who
Yeah.
cares?
So yeah, uh, I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, being easy on yourself, and that, like right there, that's, I feel like GI Joe. That's half the battle right there, is to be cool with yourself, because you perpetuate that cycle. The anger, like Joe said, anger creates anger. So you get mad at yourself, and then the cycle starts all over again. And then you let the anger affect you, and you get mad at yourself, and it starts all over again. It's like you could break that cycle by just laughing or being easy on yourself, and realizing that we are here to make mistakes. That is the protocol. Like, we're here to learn from our mistakes. We're supposed to. If you weren't making mistakes, you wouldn't be doing it right, because then you would just be doing the same thing over and over again. And what are you going to learn if you do that?
True.
Yeah. Have you seen Thumper yet? Is he still hiding? All right. Elizabeth says hi, everybody. She shot.
Hi.
But she said hi to Sharon specifically earlier, and I'm just remembering to tell you. Elizabeth says hi, Sharon.
Hello.
So yeah, so really that's I think anyway, maybe that's just the work I have to do, but that's the message I'm here to tell people today. Just be easy on yourself when you fuck up, man. Like, you're better, you're doing better than you were. And even if you're not, like, if you go down, I think that's kind of how this is, because we were
Yeah,
talking
you go
earlier
up,
about
down,
repression.
up, down.
Yeah, up, down, right? It's like a cycle, and repressing the anger. So when you realize, so say you're somebody who just expresses your anger all the time, and you get mad and all that stuff. And then you try to work on it. So you're trying not to express your anger so much with people around. So you might be repressing it, and it might cause more damage, but you're still figuring it out. So it's like, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? Don't worry. None of this stuff is real, guys. This is all slowed down light. And what the hell is light? I don't know. I haven't
Yeah.
heard a good definition for light yet. Like, really, what is it? You hear the definition, but I'm like, yeah, but then this is technically light too, though. So what does that even mean? Like, that doesn't fit your definition. Anyway,
Energy and motion.
there you go.
So shall we move on, or I mean, we
Oh,
could.
were we gonna read what Joe anger is the root of your anger? That's the root. Well, you get a pleasure from your anger as you now you can start controlling things. Yeah, there you go. With the energy, you can now fantasize and trigger thoughts and tell inner stories, or you can freak out on somebody. That anger is the energy to now try to do all these things with. So you want to hold it and keep juicing it. If you want to fantasize and or change things, the anger might need to be there. Deep down, you want it there. Deep down, there is a pleasure tied into the whole matrix. Yeah, I typed a bit. Sorry. This one is a tricky one. It's something I have a bit of trouble with, as it's hard to let it just be there if you're in the world. And Joe says hi. Joe says hi to you. Elizabeth says hi, Joe. Joe from Germany. Well, from Long Island. Yeah, she
Yeah.
knows.
Long
Um,
Island.
yeah, that's anger's a tricky one. Like, we all well, not all of us, but that's a good one to work on, I'll say. And though, that's the thing, because now you have this guru. So your anger, your triggers could be your guru, right? Or whatever triggers you, but you can even back up one step, or look at it in a different way, a little closer, and be like, it's inner you. There's triggers within you that could be your guru or your teacher.
Yeah. And all this kind of reminds me of the topic that we covered one time on an older episode about the 7 Essene mirrors, and like the reasons you, like, for example, the reasons you get triggered by someone. It could be because it's a mirror of what you're doing, like you yourself are doing, but you are pointing the finger at somebody else. Or it could also be a mirror of just something that you judge. And why do you judge it? Like, you just have to, like, sometimes I take myself through scenarios in my mind and I'm like, well, why does that upset me? Like, why do I let something, someone telling me how to live my life, why am I letting that bother me? Who are they? Like, they're just another being. And I don't have to necessarily listen to them and do what they're saying. I can take what they say with a grain of salt, just like I do with everyone else. Why are they specifically triggering me in this way? And I can just like ask myself questions like that. Again, it takes a while.
Joe
It's
says
not
that is great,
overnight.
Sharon. Most people will never ask those questions. Yeah, it's like people are trying to micromanage your life. We like just what we were exactly talking about at the beginning of this episode, and they think they know what's best for you. And so, but why is that triggering you though, right? That's the question. You can say there and be like, oh, it's all their fault and they should butt out of my life. That's one level. And yeah, if you have to set that boundary, if you have to be not around them for a while, but then there's another level, a door you can open in maybe a week, a year, a few years or whatever, where you realize that, oh, it doesn't matter what they say. I'm having a problem with it because it's something in me. This is their
Mhm.
worldview. They're entitled to any worldview they want. Anyway,
Right. Just like I'm entitled to mine. So why can't I let them be entitled to theirs? Like, why? Right. That's the thing. It's not
this really is
it's
the best
easy, but
art
it's
show on
not.
the internet, right? This really, I mean, guys, it's the best art show on the internet. I don't care what. Is there anything more important to talk about in our worldviews? No. But again, we don't judge other people. Everyone's show is the most important show on the internet to somebody. So
Yeah.
that's all. All right, let's get back to work. Haha, just
So do
kidding.
we just do it all in one fell swoop, or do we move to the next?
Yeah, I think we probably can because they're short and they are so similar. What do you
Okay.
think?
Yeah, let's do it.
You're down with that? Okay, so I'll read the second half of this Stephen Mitchell verse from 1988. The master arrives without leaving, sees the light without looking, achieves without doing a thing. Now, here's that paradox that we're always talking about. And so it's up to the reader to interpret it how they want. And the way that I interpret this is like there's nothing to be done in the physical before everything that you think that can be done out in the physical world out there can be done inside. You know, the master arrives without leaving. It kind of reminds me of what we're just talking about with people who think they know what's better for you in your life, right? You can get to that level where you set a boundary and you don't be around that person, or you could just figure it out, have compassion, and be okay with them, and then it doesn't bother you. And that is true arriving without leaving because you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to set a boundary. You didn't have to blame the other person. You arrived and you didn't have to go anywhere. It's kind of like that whole thing where when you change your worldview, your home becomes like a different place now to you. You know, it's like, oh, I was in a new place and I was home. One day I'll memorize that quote.
I have something to say before I forget because I was going to say it earlier. But could it be that because I need to work on this, the universe is showing me I need to work on it? And because that's my energy. My energy is don't tell me what to do. My energy is leave me alone. I can live my own life. I don't need to be told how to live. I don't need to be told how to be a religious person. I don't need to be told XYZ, right? I'm creating that energy around me. And so the universe is like, well, you need to work on something. So here you go. Because I'm creating that so that that kind of energy is attracted to me and I notice it. It's like when somebody tells you like, "Oh, I got a new car. It's a white Mazda XYZ, right?" And then all of a sudden on the street, you're always seeing white Mazda XYZs. You're just like seeing them everywhere. You're like, I see them now. Like I never saw them before. They were always there. You just weren't paying attention, right? You weren't seeing them because no one had pointed it out to you, but now you see them. It's
Or
that's
maybe because you're aware of it, the
right,
universe is putting them in your way to
right.
see them now because you know it's a possibility. And maybe you're just all doing it yourself. It's not even the universe. Maybe you're the universe sending all the cars your way. And exactly what you just said, Sharon. Maybe because you are the universe and you're telling yourself, I don't need these people to tell me what to do. And that's coming from a place of insecurity. So the universe is like, yeah, you do. You need them to keep telling you until it doesn't fucking bother you. And that's why you're here.
Exactly.
So get ready to do it or suffer. We don't care. We're the universe. You can suffer all the time because they're going to learn that way too. Right? You can learn your lessons the easy way or the hard way. Remember, we used to say that all the time on the show. You can learn the lessons the easy way or the hard way.
Yep.
And we're just attempting to learn the lessons the easy way, but the hard way is fun too sometimes.
Well, I'll read what Joker's Redemption Joe said. Grace comes from love, love from source. That you ask the questions shows that these negative things are happening in a field of grace. Now you can exercise free will. You can keep juicing what you are, or you can transcend it.
Well said.
Yeah. So
There's
back to that last little, what were we going to say?
yeah. Oh, I just my other cat I was looking for just walked in.
Yeah. So back to that last little piece, like you, as a master, you arrive without leaving because, and you see the light without looking and achieve without doing a thing because you do the inner work, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're not doing anything. I mean, there's okay, so I'll say this again and we say this all. There's several different ways to interpret the way I'm seeing it right now and the way we're kind of looking at it is there is nothing to do in the physical. It's all inside. You just got to change the way you see things. And then you're like, oh shit, I've arrived. I'm here. I did it all. What else they say in the verse? They like, I achieved it and I didn't do anything. All right, let's bring this back. Da, da. Okay. So we could just read this, or you could read this if you want.
All right, Dwight Goddard. Not going out of the door, I have knowledge of the world. Not peeping through the window, I perceive heaven's Tao. The more one wanders to a distance, the less he knows. It was very similar to what Stephen Mitchell said. But he says heaven's Tao, which is interesting. Stephen says the essence of the Tao. And the Tao is the way, right?
And I like the two differences in the word know, because here it's like
Oh, understand and
the
know,
less he
yes.
knows, and over here it's the more you know, and it goes back to that paradox and that there's
Yes.
meaning between the words that you have to pick up for yourself, and it means things for you, like, or you could just watch the Over Sharon show. But again, don't take what we say exactly. You got to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
That'd be funny if we just start going along and then we just get to a point where like, I guess there's really nothing to say that like really those who know really don't talk. I guess we're just gonna have to end our series on the Dow. No, does make for great entertainment. All
And
right. So
comedy,
and
laughing at oneself.
the galactic, the cosmic comedy, right? The
Yeah.
yes. All right.
Therefore, the wise man does not wander about, but he understands, or shall we say, comprehends too. He does not see things, but he defines them. Ooh. He does not labor, yet he completes. Hmm.
And also I think the word understand would work in this context because you are standing under this idea, like you stand behind it. You're the foundation of whatever this is, so you do fully understand it. It's not, it doesn't seem to be like a because the way that we've heard the word understand used, it's kind of like you're a slave to whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But either
Yeah.
way, again, it's just a word.
Yeah.
The things are in between the
We
words.
can be extreme about it, or we can recognize that it is what it is. And
And that's the third step again. Another highlight, right? You could stop using these words and you could get triggered when these words are used because like the word human
good
and
morning. Just
like
kidding.
we used to do that, right? Yeah, good morning. We kind of started off doing that. And now we're just like, you know what? It's just a word. I still like to say born day though, because it's fun. But we realize that you don't always have to, as long as you understand the concept yourself, that's really all that matters. Because you can't explain to somebody else about a born day. You could try, but they're going to be like, what?
I like realm entrance
Yeah, realm entrance.
or
That's
breath day too.
breath day. Yeah,
Anniversary of your first breath day.
I like that.
Um, so therefore the wise man does not wander about. Because wandering about is to like the word wander is very like, oh, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing, sort of thing, right? Um, and he does not see things, but he defines them. I like that. Like, I feel like that I try to do that. I try to define what it is that's actually the root of the trigger.
I like
And to
that.
the best of my ability. Not that I'm trying to go back to history, back in time to like when it first happened necessarily, but just to identify what actually causes the anger or the disappointment or the sadness. And I had a lot of experience with this when I was in a relationship of 8 years that was not ideal, right? It caused me a lot of suffering. Um, you know, it was self, I brought the suffering on myself because I didn't have to be in that relationship, but I wanted to. And I wanted to make it work. And um, so there were times when things would make me upset, make me sad, and I would dive deep into the root. I would try to be like, well, why am I upset? What made me sad? What made me angry? um, what is it about what he did, right, that pissed me off? And I would try to sometimes explain that to the other person. And, um, sometimes without really getting anything useful done, right? That person wasn't really that willing to understand or comprehend. So, but yeah, I had a lot of practice. So now I just, I still do it. I do it. I do it. I ask myself, what is the thing that upsets me and what's the root of it all? And then I try to fix it. I back in, when I was in a relationship with that person for 8 years, I was like, no, you have to fix it because you did something wrong to piss me off. Like you have to apologize. You have to do this, right? It was like that. But now it's like, no, it's me. Like I'm the one who is pissing myself off, allowing myself to get pissed off by things that I shouldn't have. I shouldn't. Again, still giving myself compassion and not, you know, being upset with myself for it,
And
but
the thing too
learning.
is you were right. You're right both times. You're right that it was his fault and he needed to change to do to keep the relationship going. So you were right. And then when you got a different viewpoint on it, you change your mind and you're still right. You're like, all right, now it's up to me to be the one, right? So that's why when we say that, it's arguing with people is so pointless, is because what would you have done? Like you did the right thing in each situation. You did the correct thing or whatever, right? It's just the steps you had to go, like the bouncing and the back and forth. And you had to take that last step to figure out the next step. So many people think they could just come across this information. They're going to become enlightened tomorrow. I'm gonna figure it out. Like Ram Dass would say to Maharaj, he's like, come on, just touch me. Like, just give me samadhi or whatever. He's like, you could just tell me how to be enlightened, or what do I got to do to be enlightened? Just give it to me, right? It's like, no, no, no. That's not how it works. It's all right there in front of you. You already are enlightened. You're just convincing yourself that you're not. Right? We already are perfect, Sharon. We're just convincing ourselves we're not.
Right. It's true.
It really is. And once you truly see that, then your behavior just aligns properly and you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. But for people like us, that haven't figured it out right away, there are these practices and all these things we do in this, the podcast and all this stuff. It all helps. And for future reference, for people who are on the path too, this is might be some valuable information for them. But it is so crazy how there really is nothing to fix, nothing to heal. Like so many people say I have all this trauma to heal. Well, go look at yourself in a mirror. Do you look okay to me? Like I look fine, like there's nothing wrong with me. I just really what's going on is I have to not act out of fear or not act out of trauma responses or react to things. But if the only way I'm going to stop doing that is to do it until I'm done. So there really is no direct way, because when you do it till you're done, then you have the epiphany, like, I'm sick of this. So there is no way to really make yourself sick of something right away. Well, maybe, sorry, maybe there is, right? But if you're going along doing it, because I don't want to say, because some people have just had one experience, like David Lynch. I was listening to him talk on this longer thing. It was like a 2 hour interview that he did. People were just asking the questions, and then someone else came up and talked. So it wasn't him the whole time, but he was just talking about his transcendental meditation experience, where the first time he did it, he just had this insane connection, and it was like all fucking gravy from there. So he was probably somebody who's really close nut to crack. Some of us, though, our shells are a little harder. We're a little more green. We have to age a little more. We have to sit out in the sun until we can crack that shell. But all our behavior that we're being so hard on ourselves for, that we think that if people found out that behavior, they would hate us, whatever it is, that thing about us that we do to hide so we can be accepted from other people, or whatever it is that we do that pisses us off, all that stuff is perfect. It's like part of who we are. And as soon as we accept it fully, then it has no hold on us. Isn't that crazy? But again, what we're talking about here is just the knowing, right? Or like from the first verse, you could know all that. I could know all that, but it doesn't mean as soon as I go, downstairs or outside or wherever, and I interact with somebody, doesn't mean I'm going to remember all that and it's going to fall perfectly into place. Or hey, maybe it will. But yeah, I feel like I'm ranting here. It's
Shall we
great.
read Stan Rosenthal?
Yeah, let's do
We have
that.
a lot of commentary in the chat. It's just flying by. So thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys. We'll come back and check it in a minute. All right. So Stan Rosenthal from 1984, Discovering the Distant. It's titled. So we that's another thing up here. It was called Seeing the Distant, Discovering the Distant, the Vision of the Distant. So it's all about visualizing, or kind of like waking up to it.
And you could think about
Yeah.
also the distant, like, how shall I say, like physically distant, and also kind of metaphorically, or like, I don't know, like I don't even know what word to use for that, but yeah.
It could, yeah, similar to metaphor. The distant could be what we're talking about right now, how we already all are perfect. And that's, we kind of just want to be that enlightened person, wherever that could be the distant. And right now we're just discovering it. Like, this is kind of how you get there, right? Like, this is how we're glimpsing it, where it's a little, you get a peek behind the veil. It's like psychedelics, right? You could take mushrooms and then you're in this state where you're kind of enlightened or whatever, and everyone's all one and it's love and everything's funny and it's great. But it's a peek behind the veil. And as soon as you come down, the ego is back in control, which then you could just keep doing mushrooms all the time to get there, or you could figure out that there's another way to get there and slowly get there, or whatever, at your own pace. I tend to move at a glacial pace, I've been told. So look at Sharon, oh, she's laughing. It's the way I do it. I'm a big glacier, everybody. Unless there's something like when there's the buildings burning or whatever, I'm like bing, 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 like I'm grabbing every, like under pressure, I'm just like a fucking like Speedy Gonzalez. But when there's no pressure, I'm glacial pace Jones. Anyway.
Shall we
Uh
read Stan Rosenthal?
yes, yes, we shall.
Because
All right.
we're not even close to done. Well, I guess we're kind of close to done, but it's already been an hour. So
I know. We do this a lot. We get, and then and it's the pressure too, right? Once the pressure's on, we fly through. But I think that's what makes the show so fun. Without opening the
we're
door, oh, that's Stephen Mitchell. Let's go down. Here we
there. You
go.
go. There you go.
Discovering the distant. The Tao may be known and observed without the need of travel. The way of the heavens might be well seen without looking through a window. The further one travels, the less one knows. And I feel like it's basically just a different way to say what the other verses have been saying, what we've been saying.
Yeah, and when I say without the need of travel, he probably means physical, right? Like
Yeah, grass
going
is always
somewhere
greener.
physically.
Do you
Grass
have
is
to go
greener
to
on the
India
other
to
side.
become enlightened?
Hmm?
Do you have to go to India to become enlightened?
Do you have to go do an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru or whatever? Like, no. Like Nigel said in the chat, I think he said you can do that. Let's see, dark room technique by Montauk Chia gets the DMT going like psilocybin without the poison. Yeah, you can do it at home. You can just set yourself in a dark place, and your brain makes DMT. So no need to travel.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
the way of the heavens.
What's up,
Go
Nigel, by
ahead.
the way? How you doing?
Huh?
I said, what's I was just saying hi to
Yeah,
Nigel.
welcome. Welcome. For
I think
sure.
when we
Welcome.
finish the verse 47 totally, before we get right into verse 48, we just run through the chat. Might be a good time.
Okay.
I mean, not
Let's
that you
see.
can't look at it now. I'm just saying that's when we're
Yeah,
gonna.
no, I mean, I kind of, I was trying to keep my eye on it. Sorry.
No, no, please do. No, you're good. I was not
Sometimes I get
complaining. I was
distracted
just providing
looking at
information.
it and then I
I
don't
know,
hear what you said. So sorry about
no,
that.
don't worry about it. No, listen, if anyone's ever distracted and doesn't hear what I say, they don't ever have to apologize because it would like me be getting mad at somebody for being tall. You fucking tall faggot. It's like, all right.
All
Oh,
right. So
yeah, the
let's
share
see the
button.
way.
That's what I keep not hitting. All right. So yeah, this kind of mirrors what the other verses say, less, but they just put it in
Yes.
another way, but it's the same thing. Like you
Yeah. It's
have
pretty
to,
much saying the same thing. Yeah.
you go within, right?
Yeah.
You could see it. The way of the heavens might be well seen without looking through a window, right? Without you just look inside. You don't have to look out. The windows would be your eyes, right? No.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so without looking, the sage sees all, and by working without self-advancing thought, he discovers the wholeness of the Tao. Wow, this keeps blowing my mind because that's
Hmm.
working on yourself. When people say, "Oh, I'm working on myself," and it's so hard because what do we exactly call it, right? Healing, but we're perfect, but we're not, right? But I think that's what this verse is saying right here at the bottom, and I'll bring it up and then I'll let you can read. But it's like by working without self-advancing thought.
Mm. Yes.
So you're just going along doing it. And it's you don't have this idea of I'm trying to make myself better because you already are it. The reason your behavior isn't aligning with what you want it to be is because you haven't figured out that you are it. And I think that's what this is saying.
Yeah. And the other aspect would be also like self-advancing with a comparison to someone else. Like, well, I'm better than they are because, and we all go through things like that. We're like, we reach a certain point and we're like, well, we know more than that person. Clearly we're right and they're wrong. Well, that's also not a good perspective, me personally speaking to myself, right? Because that person's just where they need to be for themselves. Like, I had this thought the other day, like, and we've said it before, I'm pretty sure, but it's like it kind of hit home again. Like, you are right for you, and I'm right for me. Like, just like we were talking about earlier, like the choices I make for myself, regardless of what people try to tell me about how to live my life, right? The choices that I make for myself are made from a place of all the experiences that I've lived through. And so they are right for me. That is my next step, right? And the choices that you make are right for you because of your experiences and your life. I can't compare myself to you or to anyone. because I haven't lived in your shoes, let's say this lifetime. Maybe I have in previous lifetimes and I don't remember, and that's okay. But everything we are doing right now at this moment is right for us because that's what we chose. How do I know? Because it is so. Like, it is what it is. So,
It is what it is. Exactly. That's how I know. And I can make a claim because I'm pointing to something that is. And if you are, if you find yourself, because, we'll say these things like, oh, if you compare yourself to other people, somebody might hear that. And in certain situations, I still do it, I'm sure. That's okay too, because if that's comforting for you and comparing yourself, like, so say you start to meditate like I did, and you start to have these awakenings and things are getting better, you're going to look around at other people and you're like, oh man, all they need to do is fucking meditate and they'd be fine. And then you start to become this like, evangelist for meditation. And but you're in
and
a
it's not for
place.
everybody sometimes.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah.
that's not how people, yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes people
100%.
use other methods or other techniques. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, 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 don't worry about it. Yeah, you're right, 100%. And um, but what's happening though is I was in a better state than I was before, so it's just another step up my ladder, right? So now I'm comparing myself to other people, and then I get to the point where I realize, oh, it doesn't matter. I have my own path, and then you just keep going up these rungs. So if you are somebody who does compare yourself to other people, or you find yourself doing it, it's okay. Don't be hard on yourself, because I see it as a way to overcome that negative self-talk, because at first that negative self-talk is telling you, oh, you're a piece of shit, all this stuff. And then you start to advance. So then the negative self-talk is like, oh, you're better than them. You're better than them. But at least it's not attacking you. So you have two choices. You could say, yeah, I'm better than them. You can build this new spiritual ego, right? And you could be this fucking person who thinks he's this guru, knows everything. Or you could just, and maybe that'll happen for a little while. And then you get to the next step and you're like, oh, all right, that doesn't matter. It's just that little voice in my head, and that's the true battle that I have to do, right? And then that's kind of where I'm at now. And then you just figure it out. And then there's another step where you're like, oh, that little voice in my head, I don't even have to do battle with it. It's just this little voice that's trying to keep me safe. I can choose how much attention I give to it or not. I could turn it off if I want. And then you just keep going. There's just levels to it. And so I just want to say
Dude,
that because I know you agree. Anyway, go ahead, but
thank you right now for just saying about how to think about the little voice in your head, because you saying like you could just think about it, like it made me think of like you can just think about it as just another person who is trying to care for you, like your mother or your sibling or your best friend or your partner. Like, they just care about you, so maybe they tell you something because they care about you, right? You can think of that little voice in your head as like, oh, maybe they just care about me. And then if you don't take offense or you're not all butthurt about what they just told you, then you can just like let it go and just like the thoughts are like, again, can be like clouds that pass by and you can just watch them flow by. And
and you
maybe
know
you
what
can
you're
think of people's words like that too. It's just clouds.
flying
Go
by.
ahead.
And you know exactly what you're doing when you're doing all what you just said. You're arriving home without leaving. That's exactly the work, right? You're arriving home without leaving, and you're also balancing. You have this voice, you have the ego and the intuition, we'll say, right? Whatever. You're balancing all these voices and these feelings in your head instead of always listening to the scared child that's in your head or this person who's always yelling at you, or instead of just always living in bliss and being like, oh, this is fucking great. You have a you have this balance going on, and that sounds to me like a more balanced man or woman. Like that, I think is the goal. And then once you get balance, maybe there's another goal to attain. Maybe balance isn't the answer, but it's always the next thing. And that little voice in our head, I heard it described once. I think it was Duncan Trussell, who's a comedian, and he's the one who put me on to Ram Dass, actually, listening to his podcast. And Duncan Trussell used to be on Rogan. It's so funny. Or they're still friends or whatever. But he would say that. He's like, you treat this voice in your head as just think of it as you as a child, and it's like doesn't want to be hurt again, and it's just pointing out all these things, and it's trying to control you the only way it knows how. And what's that way? It's by feelings and words and making you feel like shit, by literally making you a slave. It's trying to steer you away from hurtful situations. And once you could label that properly and you don't have any animosity now toward this voice in your head, and you're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're just, aren't you a great little voice in my head? You're just so worried. I love you, little voice in my head. Stuff like that. And then you just go on to the next level. But I don't feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but this could be every little aspect of your life. You might figure it out in relationships, and then you have it with work or whatever. You might figure it out here,
There's
and
always something to work on.
it's a constant daily battle. It could be, and I realized that, and I heard this a long time ago, like Saint George slaying the dragon. There's always pictures of Saint George, and you see this cross of Saint George, and he's always pictured as the demon dragon slayer. I think it was Michael Tessarian who was talking about that symbolism. He's saying this is the inner battle. Like that dragon is you. You're the dragon. You're trying to battle it, but you can also say you're just trying to tame it. You're trying to tame that dragon. So now that dragon's your friend. Would you rather kill the dragon or make the dragon your friend and your ally?
Mm.
Right? Sometimes you got to set a boundary and kick the dragon out, but then after a while, maybe you get to learn. All right,
Maybe you're a capybara and the dragon you just chill on the dragon's wings or
yeah,
something.
that's probably what will happen. I brought that up yesterday. Capybara. For sure. Capybaro. All right. Let's move on to the Aleister Crowley. If you're ready.
All right, Aleister Crowley entitles this The Vision of the Distant. One need not pass his threshold. I like that. To comprehend all that is under heaven. Ooh, nice. Nor to look out from his lattice to behold the Tao celestial. Who said something like that? Did Heaven's Tao, Dwight Goddard says. Aleister Crowley says to behold the Tao celestial. Wow. There must have been something that was like hinting at like the Tao being celestial or heavenly, right?
Like
For them
paradise.
both to have referenced that.
Yeah.
Nay. I love that word, nay. That's so cool. Nay. Just kidding.
Nay. I say.
But the farther a man goeth, the less he knoweth. And what a good little piece of poetry that is.
I love it because he's talking about, right, to behold the Tao celestial. So you see these heavens and all this stuff. He's like, but nay, you don't have to go out there. You don't have to travel. You don't have to go out there
You
further.
don't have to go to space.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Space.
Yeah, the farther man goeth, the less he knoweth.
And it's funny because the more you know, the farther you go, right? That's the saying for the little thing they would do like on network TV. They'd show the shooting star, the more you know,
The
the
more
farther.
you know.
But
Yeah.
Lao Tzu says no, that's not true, sir. He's saying the further your man goeth, the less you know.
And I think, I mean, this makes me think of like when you do those things, right? You might become egotistical and be like, well, now I know. But by saying now I know, you really don't, because you're being well, like egotistical and arrogant and full of pride. And what is that? That itself is ignorance. To be arrogant and full of pride, that is ignorance.
But it's okay though if you want to do it.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
No, I know you
knocking.
agree. We're agree. I'm saying that to the audience, not you.
Yeah.
And they get it too about people in this chat. That remind me though, also the further you go, so say your issue, most people's issue is with the people they grew up with, right? With their family, if they have one, right? Because
Mhm.
while we were growing up, all these traumas and these things happen or whatever. So family is usually who triggers you the most. So what do people like us normally do that we stuff
Leave.
like this? We leave.
Leave
But what's it
home. Go
saying?
far, far
It's
away.
saying no. The work you need to do is at home. I gotta call my
Good
mom
call.
after this. No, I'm just kidding.
What was it who said it recently? I don't know, maybe it was on a recent episode. You're like, like just go move back in with your parents or spend time with your family.
Yeah.
Like like just test that out. See how that goes.
Yeah, if you wanna, if you think that you
You
don't know
really
where
want to work
it
on
is,
yourself.
yeah, yeah. If you're like, oh, I need to do some work on myself, just go hang out with your family. And if you don't have any, if you hang out with your family and everything is great, fucking good on you, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's amazing. But I feel like a lot, especially the people we associate with and all our friends and stuff. Not that we have issues like with our family or whatever, but there's always seems to be this like they didn't accept us or there's like this animosity or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's good though
Yeah,
because
like
they put us on our journey and they didn't even realize it. They set
yeah,
us on
yeah.
our
Like when I was I guess kind of when I was growing up and even like, whenever like as an adult, I would see like other families, like other people like doing stuff together and doing like all these family things. And I'd be like, that's so cool. But then other people would say that about my family. And I'm like, I mean, I mean, we do hang out and stuff, but sometimes there's little like rifts between, like, sometimes it'll be one sibling and then whatever they're doing, everybody's just like, what's going on, and then like, and then it'll be like me or it'll be like another sibling, and there's always like, so, but, actually, I think that happens to a lot of people, to a lot of families. It's not just, not, it's not hunky dory all the time for everyone. I don't think. I don't know. At least I tell myself that so that I feel normal.
No, I think in this society you're exactly correct. Um, and I think it's part of the way that our karma works. I think we're born into these situations. It's funny because to bring up Ram Dass again, and we're not worshiping him, everybody. He was just a man. There's plenty of things I can point to that he said that were fucking crazy, but I love him because I say crazy things too. But he was talking about his dad, and he's like, my dad, like his incarnation was to be the father of Ram Dass. He's like, wow, that's some heavy karma, like and his mom. And I think about that with my parents too. Like my dad was born on 7/11/1955. It's crazy, right? Like these numbers.
He was born to be your dad.
And he's exactly a year, a month, and a week older than my mom. It's nuts. Is it a day too? No, just a week, a year, a month, and a week. Because he's July 11 and she's 8/18. So
Wow.
no, I guess it would be a month and a day because there's 31 days in July. And I'm exactly 2 years, 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days older than Dwayne Wayne. Doesn't mean we're gonna get married, but yeah, it's this. I'm telling you, this realm. Maybe these things are put there as clues to let you know that it's not just all some happy coincidence. Like some people are like atheists believe or whatever. I mean, who knows? But it is in the programming, the karma. It's there. So if you hate your parents or have animosity toward your parents, or that's where the true work lies. And I'm not saying that you should go. Maybe you're probably not ready, or maybe you're not. If you're
Do
not ready
whatever
to
you're
face them now, it's fine. When you're ready, you get to that point, you do it in your own time. We're not sitting here trying to give people guilt because that's another thing, man. That guilt,
No,
and
yeah,
it's a
guilt is
gift.
not.
And
Go ahead.
Elizabeth, I wasn't there, but Elizabeth's mom and brother and brother's wife, they were all hanging out. Thursday night, I was working last Thursday, and her mom had said something to her, and by the way, her mom's amazing. Shout out because I want her to watch the show. I've been telling her about it. So if you're watching this, Nancy, I love you, and if you got this far, we're not judging anybody. So we talk about murderers and we don't judge them, right? So, but she had said something about, whatever it was, you say to your daughter, and I guess there was a little bit of guilt that Elizabeth had perceived. So she's like, I don't accept your guilt gift. Return to sender, like, and they laughed about it though, which is good too, because you transmuted the situation and you brought consciousness and highlighted it. And what we would say though, the next level is to just be like, if they give you guilt, it's on them. You take their energy, right? That's where
Yeah,
we're
do
working.
it in your mind. Don't
But I
accept the
like how
guilt.
she set
Return to
that
sender.
boundary because
Yeah.
she wants to be around her mom, and she realized that sometimes her mom makes her feel guilty. Now,
Yeah.
whose fault is that guilt? Is it her mom's fault? Is it Elizabeth's fault? Who freaking knows, right? Like, there's so many levels to look at it. But the way she made it funny and established that boundary, I think was hilarious. And we had a really awesome conversation last night about a lot of this kind of stuff, and I with her mom too. So it's not like I said, her mom's an amazing, beautiful person who's open to this. I actually bought her mom a tarot deck, her first one, because Friday night we were hanging out and it was just me, her, and her mom. Her brother and her brother's wife were out visiting friends or whatever. I can't remember, but so I started to break. I was like, you don't know anything about the tarot, and so I started talking about the suits, the numbers. I started with numbers and how amazing they are, and all this stuff in suits, and she was really into it. And I was podcasting basically in the living room with no mic or camera. And she was really into it. And I did a reading for everybody, or I did a reading for her and then for Elizabeth. And they're like, why don't you do one for yourself? So I did a reading for myself. And I got two of the same cards that Elizabeth got, or one of them
That's
and one
fun.
we had gotten earlier. It was crazy. And so she seemed really interested. And I was thinking to myself, I should get her a gift. And I was like, oh, I'll get her a crystal or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what made me think of it, but Barnes and Noble's right down the street. I'm like, I'll just go there. So I got her the tarot for beginners, the one that shows the two of swords on the cover. And even the lady at the register was like, "Oh, this is a great deck." And I told her, I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting it for my future mother-in-law." She's like, "Oh, you're gonna score some great points with this gift." She really was taken
Nice.
aback. She didn't expect it. And when I went to the bathroom, Elizabeth was even like, "I didn't tell him to do this. Like, he just went out and did it." So,
Yeah. That's
but
cool.
that
But I like,
go ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say I like what you said about whose fault is it? Like it's neither person's fault. Like
It just
it
is.
it just is. Like somebody who grew up with that um tendency to put guilt on somebody else, right? I mean, we all have done it to some extent, right? So that's that's how this person responds, and then the person who feels that, notices that energy of guilt coming toward them is noticing it, and depending on how healed they are from, or if the work they've done, if they are becoming aware of it and they notice it and they say something about it, that's actually good to bring awareness to it. But it's not her fault for feeling it. And the person who, kind of handed it out or gave it out is not necessarily at fault either, because it's just a response. It's like a trigger. Um, so yeah, anyway, that was I'm glad you said that.
As we sit here, we are an avatar of everybody in our family line that came before us. Maybe that's how reincarnation works or something. I don't know, but so that back and forth between a mother and a daughter, that represents the whole line. Everything that came down that's happened to that family is in the present moment, and this is where it sits. And for them to do that work is so amazing, because as you heal that, you're healing it. We've talked about that, we say this a lot, but it goes back through the family lines. It's healing it all now. And if you go forward in the future, that's how you change the world, because you just eliminated all this, we'll just call it bullshit, right? Or whatever it is, this guilt and all these things, the way we manipulate. And like you said, exactly, it's a defense mechanism. It's something we learn as children. I used to be really guilty of it. I'm guilty of spreading the guilt. I'm really good at making people feel guilty, probably because I'm an INTP and I'm a freaking genius. So I know, and to me, it doesn't work. I guess I could be guilty, but now that I'm aware of it, it's a lot easier. But so I know, and I used to use that, and I still go to use it sometimes. I'm like going to say something, I'm like, yeah, and that's really where you start to get when you start to clean up, right? And I choose not to. make people feel guilty because I don't want to do it. It's not because they told me not to do it and they're going to call me out if I do it. I'm going to be found out or whatever, right? It's just like, it just doesn't have any attraction to me anymore.
Yeah.
I guess we
Did
should be
we?
done.
Yeah. Did we finish Aleister Crowley?
This is why it's the Oversharing show, guys. They love it. No, I don't think we did the last line though.
Let's see. The sages acquired their knowledge without travel. They named all things aright without beholding them, and acting without aim fulfilled their wills. This is very cryptic.
Love it. I
It's
fucking
very
love you,
esoteric.
Alistair. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's speaking to my fucking soul right now because he's like they acquire their knowledge without travel. So we kind of covered that one, right? They named all things
yeah.
without beholding them. So they didn't have to get attached. They didn't have to hold it in their hand and say, "This is my fucking jar of tobacco. It's mine. It's tobacco, and I'm not gonna give it to anybody or whatever." It's like they named it without having any attachment or taking it personally. They're like, "That's a deer." They weren't like, "I fucking love this deer. Nothing better happened to it. It's my deer. These are mine." Like this is my tree.
Behold, beholding is without looking at them, I think. But
Oh,
the
I'm just
attachment to is good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this is how it's I see what you're saying. That's kind of how I looked at it the first time, but when you read it this time, it hit me that way. I was
Right.
but
Sometimes it hits different.
yeah. No, you're probably more right about the meaning, but that's just how it hit me in this moment. And then there
No,
was
it makes sense.
the last acting without aim fulfilled their wills. And this is something Sharon and I were talking a little bit before we got on the air. But it's like so many of us, we know about manifestation, right? And we want to manifest this great future for ourselves. And we've talked, this is something we used to talk about more on the show, but well, what is our future supposed to look like? And is what we want the way it's going to be or supposed to be? Or is it more about kind of just staying open? Because I feel like if you're manifesting, there's a fine line where you're too focused on the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is correct that you could be manifesting a bad life or a bad set of circumstances um, for yourself because of the way you're acting and thinking and you're actually manifesting it. But does that mean that you have to fix it and then manifest everything the way that you think it should be? Or is that just the other polar opposite of manifesting bad and try to manifesting good? Is that just control? Or is it just about being in the middle and taking stuff as it comes? And I think Aleister Crowley would agree because he said acting without aim fulfill the sages. They don't act, they have no aim. They're not aiming towards something, but they
They're
still
not
their
attached to
will.
the end goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's I keep reading about that. I'm just reading all these books lately, and I just keep reading about that, the attachment to the end goal. It's
It's
like
like when I
just
go to an open mic and I might not
yeah.
get any laughs at all, but it doesn't matter. Like, what was the goal or what was
What
the,
was the goal for you to
I
get
had it
people to
like,
laugh?
right. Yeah. I had a feeling to go there to express these thoughts. I went out and did it and I felt good about doing it. And only maybe a few people laughed or whatever, but I fulfilled my will still, I wasn't focused on the goal. I wasn't like, I gotta, now, if it was a show, obviously the goal is to kind of make people laugh and that's your aim or whatever. But, as because
But here's the
like an
thing.
open
It's
mic show.
about being attached to it and saying, if they laugh, then I'm going to be happy. And if they
Yes, yes,
don't, I'm going to
yes,
be mad. It's
exactly.
about that. It's not to not have a goal. It's to not be attached
To the
to
outcome.
what happens
Yeah.
in the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
Like you can say, I want to make people laugh because, that's fun, that's good. And it's levity and it makes people kind of puts people in a joyous state. And I would like that to happen, but don't be attached. In other words, don't get mad if it doesn't happen. Right.
Exactly. 100%. It's
And
about
don't beat yourself up if it doesn't happen.
just accept it. All right. Well, now that we've fully dissected, I was like, oh, this verse is so easy. An hour and a half later. No. All right,
I
verse
know,
48.
Jesus.
Even that's, you know what though, honestly, as long as these take, I think it's fine because people watching live, they can hang out and oh, that's what we should do. Maybe go to, you know what, here,
Oh,
let's
you
just
wanted to check the chat
briefly,
real
yeah, we'll
quick.
check out the chat or whatever. Because people can always go back and watch this stuff at their own pace. So I feel like we're really fleshing out all these ideas. It's like,
Yeah, it's a good call.
we have a new somebody new, Kathleen. What's up, Kathleen?
She said happy belated birthday to you.
Oh, oh, maybe I do know her. I just don't recognize her last name. What's going on in that little picture?
Yeah.
Thank you for my celebrating my realm entrance day.
Yeah.
Parents
Well,
were the programmer
welcome.
until you had enough. Wanted to see a with own eyes, see a world with your own eyes, maybe. Oh,
I don't
oh,
recognize our way, man, but welcome.
wow, I like it. I just love you guys, and the chat here is always awesome. Thank you, Trish MS. Is that maybe a motivation for people, but they are invested emotionally? Hmm. I think I started too soon and didn't go
Yeah,
far.
there's a lot of stuff that
Oh,
they've
Joe had to
been
go with
chatty
them. Joe,
today.
I hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed your dinner for when you come back and watch the rest of this.
Mm-hmm.
I get offended easily. I'm working on that, says Trish. Yeah, it's there's nothing to
That's the
get ashamed
first
about.
step, right? Acknowledgement and like recognizing that is the first step.
Oh, QSB, best darn chat on the internet. Thank you. Yeah, and there's nothing to be ashamed with about realizing that you get triggered because you're telling us to get triggered. So this means that you've at least uncovered one layer of it, which is you're in denial about being triggered and everyone else is wrong and fuck them, right? That's so you're past that. I get triggered too. Don't worry. We sound like we know what we're doing here, and but again,
We're
we're
going
all
with the flow.
flown with the go. Awesome. Looks like we have 8 people in here. So amazing. Thank you, 8. It's a good number. It's about to be August, so it's about to be Leo season. Kansas season's coming to an end. It was a good Kansas season 2024. I'll tell you what, we still got a couple days left, but
I'm a Leo rising.
there you go. Yeah, I feel it
I,
when it's Libra season. I feel it because it's my rising ascendant, whatever sign too.
I have a
MS
nephew
says
who's a Leo. Go ahead.
I think this might depend on where the moon is in one's astrology chart. Like, for example, mine is in Taurus. That's so crazy. We were just talking about rising signs and stuff. And I can't get attached to belongings or physical things or people and things remaining the same. Luckily, I have my whole life as a lesson in letting go. For example, I have probably moved 50 plus times in my life. Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot. Wow.
And the fact that you realize that now, though, is so all those movings and all that stuff that you did, and I'm sure you understand this, but it's what you had to do to get where you are now. I mean, it's so crazy. So good on you for figuring that out. And there was one of the other things you could have done was figure that out and said, "Oh man, why does this always happen to me? This is terrible. I always get the worst stuff in life. Well, God's against me, all these things." Or you could be like, "Oh, this is fucking great. I'm gonna watch Sharon and Brandon and figure this shit out."
Yeah, and the other thing is he said, I've had my whole life as a lesson in letting go. Everybody's life is pretty much a lesson and could be used as a lesson in letting go. You just have to come to that realization, and you've made the realization, and that's like the first step, just
Yeah, you've
knowing.
arrived. In the fact that you look at your life that way, you'll never be a victim.
Yeah.
Even if temporarily something happens and you slip into victim or whatever, if
Right.
that's your goal, you're going to be like, oh shit, this guy smacked me in the face because of this, or I got a flat tire because of that.
Yep.
Yep. All right. All
Shall we
right.
move on to verse
Yeah.
48?
Sharon and I were in such good synchronization. Like I could feel it when it's like, all right, it's time. All right. Verse 48. That's why I'm like, all right. Stephen Mitchell from 1980. In pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering.
Mm,
Oop,
wow. I want to already
that was
talk
the
about
first
it, but we'll
one.
move on.
I do too. Like for a
Dwight
whole.
Goddard. It's entitled To Forget Knowledge. Wow. Hmm. So sometimes we I won't comment too much. I'll just say sometimes we learn something and then we forget it. But, sometimes we're reminded of it again. All right, I'll read. He who attends daily to learning increases in learning. He who practices Tao daily diminishes. Again and again, he humbles himself. Thus, he attains to non doing, Wu Wei. He practices non doing, and yet there is nothing left undone. I feel like this is one of the famous verses, right?
Yeah,
Um, to
it sounds.
command the empire, one must not employ craft. If one uses craft, he is not fit to command the empire.
Oh, tell him, Lao Tzu. All right, Stan Rosenthal. Forgetting knowledge. When pursuing knowledge, something new is acquired each day. But when pursuing the way of the Tao, something is subtracted. Less striving occurs until there is no striving. When effort is uncontrived, nothing is left undone. The way of nature rules by allowing things to take their course, not by contriving to change. Oops.
All right, Aleister Crowley entitles this Oblivion, Overcoming Knowledge. The scholar seeketh daily, sorry, yeah. The scholar seeketh daily increase of knowing. The sage of Tao daily decrease of doing. He decreaseth it again and again until he doth no act with the lust of result.
You better doth no act.
I love it. Having attained this inertia, all accomplisheth itself. When I read it next time, I will translate to modern English.
Okay, good idea.
He who attracteth to himself all that is under heaven doth so without effort. He who maketh effort is not able to attract it.
I just want to
All
say
right.
something really quickly, not even
Yeah.
about the verse, but you see how I have it highlighted?
Yeah.
Doesn't it look, if you just take the highlighted area and like blur it a little bit, it looks like the top of a pillar,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. Like a
column,
column.
right?
Yes, it does. Like a Roman column.
Or the top of like a Olympic fire torch thing, right? Oh, that's a
Yeah.
synchronicity. All right. So we'll just get into it right now. We'll read the first part at least. In pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In pursuit of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Now, this exactly has to do with letting go, right? And
Yes.
again, we'll bring up, well, we should do a drinking game every time. All right, guys, new oversharing drinking game. Every time we say Ram Dass, you could take a shot or
A
Jesus,
drink
a hit or whatever. Yeah.
or whatever
Uh,
it is that you want to do.
he
A shot of water.
he talks about when he meditated, because he meditated forever and ever, and he said all this knowledge would pour out because when you're sitting there trying to be quiet and meditate, all these things that can come up. So he said sometimes knowledge is detrimental. Sometimes you reach a point where you're like, I had enough. I feel like that I get to these points, like up and down, and that's kind of another reason why I hermit sometimes. I become a hermit on Telegram. It's just because I've had a lot of outside kind of exposure. Also, I'm in the midst of building a new relationship with my woman. Everyone gets it. Sharon gets it. But so I feel like how Ram Dass put it is so true because you get attached to all this knowledge that you have, and when you're becoming more in alignment with the Tao, you're letting it go. and you're like, oh, maybe I don't know this. Maybe this isn't knowledge that I learned. I thought it was so cool. Maybe fluoride isn't bad for you. Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably is.
This,
Go ahead.
sorry, you were going to say something.
No, no, I'm just scatting. Go ahead.
This verse, when I first read it, it reminds me of um several years ago when I was like noticing that like I felt like God was taking things away from me, but it was like in a good way. Like
Yeah,
I was like grateful for it. Like, for example, um, let's just say like a new lifestyle of like eating a certain way and like um buying things for my like, body care products and stuff like that, right? Whereas before I used to like, as a teenager or in my 20s or whatever, I'd stand in front of the Target wall of deodorants and I'd be like, well, which one do I pick? There's like 800,000 deodorants. Like, which one do I pick? And, and like, once I got to a place where I was like, I don't, I can't use any of those because they have ingredients that I don't like, that are not natural, that are not helpful to me. So it's like I didn't have to do that anymore. So God took that away from me. And I was like so grateful for that because then I didn't have to go through that stress of like, what do I pick? Because that was always annoying to me. Like I just didn't know what I should pick. Same thing with like whatever shampoo, skin lotion, whatever it was. And same thing with food too. I was like, all these packaged foods is like now I read the ingredients and I'm like, if there's not like 3 or 4 ingredients and there's anything I cannot read, like if I can't read what it says and it's like some like mumbo jumbo chemical ingredient, I'm like, sorry, bye. Like I'm not picking you. I'm not buying you. So it's eliminated a lot of things that I don't need in my life. And so it just, I don't know, it just made me think of that.
no, I love it. And then you get to that next step too, where you realize we are all light, and whatever I eat, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. No,
Right.
I
Right.
can eat a McDonald's. What was it? A Big Mac and a Diet
That
Coke.
guy, remember that guy?
It's like an inside joke for us. There was this guy who was a breatharian, and then later there was videos of him, and then years later they caught up with him, and he was like,
He was like doing one meal a day, I think, but he was just eating one McDonald's
yeah,
meal and that's
yeah.
it.
He's like, all I need is yeah. It's so funny,
Yeah.
but maybe it's true for him. Like, what? How are we? It, it's like you never know who your teacher is going to be or your guru, right?
Right. Right.
Anyways,
And then
I
like
like
the
what you
less
said.
and less do you need to force things until you arrive at non-action. Like that the other thing it reminds me of too was like like getting together with people like old friends and stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, we should do something. Let's do something. Let's hang out, whatever." And then for whatever reason they'd cancel on me. And I became of the mode of like, if they cancel, I don't care. Like I'm happy because like I don't need apparently I didn't need to have this experience or this like reunion or whatever. Like so then I'm just like I'm cool. It's like an introvert when you cancel plans, they're like happy. I became like partially an introvert.
Canceled plan.
accepting the plans as they came, like, I didn't need to force things. I don't need to force things. Um
And I
yeah,
like how
that's just
like
one example.
in the way he translator puts it here too, less and less you need to force things.
Yes.
So you don't
Yes.
even just stop doing it. It just like you said, it happens naturally with the food. Less and less you have to force what kind of thing you want to put under your arm or put in your body and all this. It just becomes so much simpler. And then even though I was kind of jokingly saying it, but I do view it this way when I go eat somewhere and I don't know what's in it, like if I'm at a wedding
Yeah.
or going out to eat with people, I have like we were saying, you just are like, you know what? Bless the food. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just like, I just remind myself I am a being of light and nothing can harm me. Like yes, people will be like, but it's doing this to your body right now. Okay, but in the end, it doesn't harm me because why? Because I'm going to a place where I'm going to be complete light and this body will just decay here. And then what? Like, it didn't really harm me, did it? No, it didn't.
Maybe I needed those toxins because for whatever reason, you could
Yeah,
create whatever scenario you want, or maybe because I'm conscious of it and I'm not worried about it, it's not going to affect me as much.
right.
These toxins in our environment, the way I think uh,
They work.
the way they work, or the way that they're able to still be there and people are able to get away with putting these toxins in, is because there's just little toxins spread everywhere, and it's the mass consumption of all of it. It's like eating the shitty food while putting on sunscreen, while drinking the fluoride, while like it's cumulative. So I feel like we are really resilient, and especially if you have that
Yes.
mindset of it's not going to fucking bother me, because if you truly believe that, then who am I to say? I was like the other day, I'm like, I think if people say they want to move mountains, I really think they can. Like,
Yeah.
for Christian, I fucking love Christianity. Christ, you said you got the faith, you can move a mountain. I think you can. Like,
Yeah. I've
so
even heard of trees being able to like move themselves.
yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
could it be Ents?
And
Real Ents in real life?
exactly. I think the trees are just sleeping right now, everybody. Could it be that something happens and they come alive? I hope, and if that's the case, maybe that's why everyone's like, hey, hug a tree, because maybe if there's like a vapor canopy or whatever, the conditions change. Maybe the trees do become alive and they fucking go after the people who are. So if you hug them, you're like, oh yeah, he was a tree hugger. We'll leave him alone, man.
Yeah.
We should. That'd be a funny horror movie. That'd be great.
Oh my God.
Similar to that M Night Shyamalan movie where the everybody started acting crazy and they figured it out was because it was a chemical that the trees released. I forgot what the name of that one was, but that was nuts. What Marky Mark
I
was in
never
that.
saw that one.
Mark Wahlberg. Somebody in the chat probably knows the name. But yeah, people just start like stabbing themselves and shit. They're like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's a weird.
Weird.
What a twist.
Did you want to read the
Yeah, let's do it. We're gonna be here till
do
like
you
all.
want do you want to do it in two parts, or shall we just do it all in one fell
Yeah, maybe
swoop?
we should just do it all. I think yeah. So we cover that, and then the less and less. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. So many ways you can look at this, but if you have a to-do list at the end of the day, if you don't get to all of it, that means that there's stuff that was left undone. But if you don't have a list and you're just living with your will and you're going along and you're not attached, you could still have a to-do list. I'm not telling you, you gotta, but you're just not attached to it. You let it go at the end of the day. Or like we were saying,
Right.
you have a
Right.
to-do list, and at the end of the day, you didn't get to it. So you're like, all right, tomorrow, I guess.
Whatever you accomplished was meant to be accomplished. Why? Because
Yes,
it was accomplished. And whatever was not meant to be accomplished, was meant for another day, another time.
exactly. True
Yeah.
mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way.
Hmm.
Really self-explanatory. It can't be gained by interfering. We'll probably say more on those as we go along because all these are pretty close.
Yeah.
You can go ahead if you want. Let's see.
So Dwight Goddard says, to forget knowledge, he who attends daily to learning increases in learning. He who practices Tao daily diminishes. Let's see, what is he trying to say there? It's just kind of like what we were talking about in that
Yeah,
um first one. It's like the more, it's like you let go. So the more you practice Tao, the more you can let go of things. You aren't attached to things. So that's what where the diminishing comes in. Next line, shall I read? Again and again he humbles himself, thus he attains to non-doing, Wu Wei. Yeah, this humbling of oneself, like I said earlier, um, we talked about arrogance and pride. Arrogance and pride is essentially is folly. It's foolish, um, because it's like you think you're the shit. You think you got it, and no one is better than you, and you're you're better than all these other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have it right. Everyone's wrong. Um, that's not, obviously that's not a virtue. Um, so someone who is a master is continuously humbling himself. And thus, that's how you arrive to non doing. Because think of someone who has a lot of pride and arrogance. They're constantly like, perhaps they're like an ENTJ, which is what I am, is looked at as this type of person who is like go getter, is getting stuff done, is like, getting up in the ranks. And it's like now they're the CEO and they're like you know, that's the whole like thing. But if you can get to the point where you recognize that uh like achieving all those things isn't the way, like you can begin to humble yourself and do things by not doing. um I don't know if I even said that very well, but
No, it totally makes sense. And to say some of what we were saying before, it's like you're kind of when you're being prideful and arrogant and all this stuff, you're saying that you know better than God too, like in a nutshell. It's another, it's like
yeah,
not only do
good
I know
point.
better than everybody else, but I know better than God, which is funny because if we are God or an aspect of God, then like I said before, we already know, but we develop this little ego, which is nothing wrong with that. But we sometimes if you let it control you, then it's like I know what's best. It shouldn't be raining right now. That's it's funny because I'm a DJ. I DJ a lot of weddings, so I get to see people's reactions when it rains. And some people are like, "Oh, it's whatever. It's raining. It's great." Some people are just so upset when it rains. And that to me, one of those things like being upset at the weather is so like uh
Childish, immature.
yeah. I just didn't want to say it like
Say it
so,
that way.
but it's just so it's
I've
fruitless. I'll
noticed
say
it
it's
in
so
my own
fruitless.
self. That's why I say it.
Me too, because it's the most frustrating thing, and you really can't do anything about it. I mean, maybe you can make
Mm-hmm.
a blockbuster, I don't know, but what I mean is like if you just go with it, then it doesn't affect you. And I've noticed that too. Like when it's raining, I'll just walk outside in the rain. But again,
Yeah.
I digress. All right, shall we?
Yeah. Yes, we shall.
We shall. But yeah, the weather. That's
All right.
I like what you said about the humbling though. That's so true. And it could be looked as you're losing or you're diminishing because your ego is diminishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your
Mm-hmm.
your need to control everything is diminishing, really, right?
Right. Thank you. Because like there was somewhere I wanted to go with what I was saying and I lost myself. So I didn't remember, but yes. Repeat that again.
Your need to control things diminishes.
Yes, absolutely. So if you lose that need to control, there's the non-doing, right?
Yeah, because you're not doing it anymore. You're not responsible because I feel like we feel like we're responsible for all these things that happen in our life. But once you realize it's just God giving you these circumstances and then you deal with them in the best way that you can to learn and grow, then you no longer are the doer. It's God doing it and you're just along for the ride, right? You're just like, all right, God, what are we doing today? Let's do it. Mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. So the last piece of the Dwight Goddard says he practices non-doing and yet there is nothing left undone. There is nothing left undone.
Because like we were saying before with the to-do list, right? If you're not attached to that to-do list, then there really is nothing to do. You're just using that list as a guide or what you want to get done today. And then at the end of the day, you're like, all right, I'll get this done. But if you have this to-do list and you're like, fuck, I didn't get it done, then you're attached
Yeah. Yes.
and
Yes.
you never were going to get it done because guess what? You didn't. So that means you never were. So no matter what you did. everything the right way. And that's really just about accepting it. And again, it gets nuanced where you could just let people walk all over you and you're like, oh, this is just what's meant to happen, and you let it all happen and stuff like that. This, we're not speaking of the new age interpretation of this stuff. Uh, but yeah. But even if that is the case, right, you're still not a victim. Oh, hey, Lou. Luke just came in.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm surrounded by lovely.
Um, so you're checking the chat?
Yeah. Go ahead. You always know. I'll
No, you're
break.
fine.
All right.
All right. So it says to command the empire, one must not employ craft. And what is craft? It's like control, right? Trying to control the situation, trying to get the outcome the way you want it, right?
I feel like craft is like a practice, right? So it could be a good thing or a bad thing, but I think the reason why they're highlighting it right here like this is because, like, think of witchcraft or,
Right.
um, but I think he's talking about statecraft, and he's like, you're
Like
trying
what?
statecraft, which they actually teach in like big colleges, like the word
What
state,
is?
like Connecticut is a state, and then
Yeah,
statecraft.
I've never
That's
heard
what they
that.
teach to people, learn that like politicians and stuff, and it's they've been teaching stuff at like that at what's the one, the college in
Yale? Just kidding.
well, yeah, Yale, but there's a college, Oxford. They've been teaching it for like 1,000 years at Oxford. Like Oxford's been there, well, allegedly, but so it's telling you, and it said this before in the Tao too. It's talked about this, how to be a good leader, but this is telling you that you don't need that craft, you don't need that scheming, the plotting, the mind control, right? Is really what I think they're talking about here, because that's what goes along with craft. Unless
This
maybe we should
the
look up
scheming
craft.
and plotting. Right, because the scheming and plotting is attached to the end, to the outcome, right?
Yes, and then if you are a schemer and a plotter, then you're going to reap what you sow, and you're going to end up with a society like we have, like a controlled. You're going to get a Beavis and Butthead, and you're like, who do I vote for? Do I vote for Beavis or Butthead? Like, this is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last line says, if one uses craft, he is not fit to command the empire.
Yep.
So essentially, the people who are using the craft are not fit to command the empire, but
Yes,
yet they're still trying.
they still are, right? They're just not fit, but it's all right because they really control you, and that's the thing I still can't understand. People get so wrapped up in these presidential elections, and I'm just like, how much does it really impact your life with the president? It's like, think about it. Look back. Don't look toward the future of what could be and what they could do. Look back at what they did do. You know, Democrats, whatever. That's for another show. All right, we're talking about the Dow. Do the Dow now. You guys are doing it great out there. Just keep doing what you're doing out there. It's all perfect. All right. Forgetting, so Stan Rosenthal from 1984, forgetting knowledge. We're going to break this down. When pursuing knowledge, something new is acquired each day. But when pursuing the way of the Tao, something is subtracted. Less striving occurs until there is no striving. And it's pretty much sums up what they were saying in the other verses. Unless you have something to add. You good?
Which one did you read?
I read the top part of the San Rosenthal one, but I was just saying how it's pretty much like the other two verses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And when effort is uncontrived, nothing is left undone. The way of nature rules by allowing things to take their course, not by contriving to change. So I just see Stan Rosenthal saying the same thing that Dwight Goddard said, just in a different way. He's not using the context of like an empire. This is just more of a personal thing. He's talking about nature. And that is true. If you look at nature, there's no control out there. There isn't like Mother Nature isn't like walking around making sure trees grow a certain way. Like trees just grow the way
Yeah,
they grow. Everything happens just the way it does.
indeed.
And we're the same. We're from that. That's us. Like
Yeah.
everyone take a shot. Like when Ram Dass talked about trees, like you wouldn't go into a forest and look at one tree that was twisted and deformed and be like, oh, I wish this tree was like the other trees. But that's what you're doing when you judge yourself. You're like, oh, there's something wrong with me. You're just judging the tree.
And others too.
And like I said, you don't want to judge the trees because if they become alive, they start eating people, unless you're a tree hugger. So we know we're all safe.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of the quote in the Bible that says where Jesus talks about the birds and like he clothes the birds and the flowers and all that stuff, and they have no need of, you know, making clothes for themselves and all that stuff. Is like, so why should we be so worried if God is in control um and loves us? Why worry about those things?
Yep.
Just be,
And even
right?
when animals build things like nests and stuff, they use everything that's in their environment. They use whatever is at their disposal. They don't go down to Home Depot. Like they're not like, oh, I'm not going to use this 2x4. It's work. No, they see a straw, they're using it. Whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. You want to read the Aleister Crowley, and then we'll break it down and get that F out of here.
Yep. Oblivion,
Oops.
overcoming knowledge. They all use the word knowledge, right? Yeah, to forget knowledge was Dwight Goddard. Forgetting knowledge, Stan Rosenthal. And oblivion, overcoming knowledge, says Aleister Crowley. Writer
Oh, I
says,
like that. Oblivion. Hang on, let's just break down this title
right,
real quick.
right. Go
So
ahead.
Oblivion is like the abyss, right? It's the what do they call it? The Tao? It comes out of the void. There you go, the void. So this is
Mm.
allowing the void inside you to overcome the knowledge that you have to get more in touch with your intuition, really.
Here,
Because
let
when
me read the go ahead.
no, I was going to say
I was
the
just going to read the definition to oblivion real quick. The
please
state
do.
of being completely forgotten or unknown. That is oblivion.
There you go. Perfect. You don't know that you forgot everything. It's like
Wow.
talk kind of thing. It's that paradox that we love so much here.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
All right, go ahead.
The scholar seeketh daily increase of knowing. The sage, and I'm just going to add the word. Okay, I'm going to read it like I said without the old English or whatever
Oldie
this is called.
English.
The scholar seeks daily increase of knowing. I'm going to add a word here. The sage seeks, or sorry, the sage of Tao. Wait, scholar seeks daily increase of knowing. Now I lost myself because before I knew what it was trying to say. Now I'm like completely like what? Okay, the sage of Tao.
Daily decrease of doing. So you could say the sage of the Tao decreases daily his doing.
Mm,
Daily
I
his
don't know if
doing
that's what.
decreases.
Okay, okay. I think I get it. The sage of Tao seeks daily the decrease of doing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, okay.
They think that's what but he didn't use all the extraneous words, so I got confused. So the sage of Tao seeks daily the decrease of doing. Yes,
Or
because
maybe
that's what.
the decrease of doing just happens and he's not exactly seeking it. So maybe that's why he didn't say seek. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But as to compare it to the first
yeah,
sentence, it
yeah.
just kind of helps put it
No, then,
in.
yeah, 100%.
Or you could say the sage of Tao, the daily the decrease of doing or
His
whatever.
daily, his daily doings decrease. basically it's like saying with the first one, when pursuing the way of the Tao, something is subtracted. So if you're a sage of the Tao, every day instead of gaining things, you're losing them, but you're letting go, right?
Yeah.
Because it's doing, not doing. So you're not doing anymore. Less are you not, less, more and more you're walking your Dharma, because when you're doing your Dharma, you're really not doing anything.
Yeah. You're
It's like
just
breathing.
being.
Are you really doing something when you breathe, or is it just your nature to breathe, right?
Right. Who's breathing for you? Are you like actively telling yourself every 5 seconds, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out? No. It's like the birds in the air that are clothed by God and the flowers that are clothed by God. It's like they're just clothed by God. I'm just breathing, right? Why can't I just be as well?
And you could even
Right?
sum it up simply and say that you realize every day more and more that you realize that it's not you that's breathing, it's the universe that's breathing you.
Yes. I've heard it put that way too.
Wow. How you like it now? Oh, all right, I'll bring this back and I see what I did here. I skipped. I think I figured out finally now why I'm
Why you
skip.
keep doing that?
Yeah, because I go to do the this. Well, it's probably not going to show up. I go to do the four finger spread where everything spreads apart, but I end up
Oh, oh, I got it. I got it because you're on a Mac. Yeah.
yes. And
All
if
right.
it's
So then go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, and if it's not my top window, but I'm still highlighted on it, I scroll and I don't even realize I'm scrolling. So that's what's going on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
La la la. All right. Until here we go.
Okay. He decreases it again and again, as in the doing, until he does no act with the lust of result. That's what we were talking about earlier. Like you do things, but the result is what it is. You're not going to feel some kind of way about it if it doesn't come out the way you were like, oh, I thought it should have come out this way. Right?
Exactly. Sorry.
Having attained this inertia, all accomplishes itself. Right? This reminds me of like in Spanish, when people say um things like it's funny because the way Spanish works is some you don't ever like say that you did something. You just say it happened. Like, oh, the cup fell out of my hand basically. Like you don't say I dropped it. You say the cup
Oh,
like it fell itself basically. It fell by itself. And it's funny
that's
because then it's
interesting.
like there's like there's no blame to oneself. It's kind of funny.
Well, it's like English is conducive to victim narrative, you know. And there's people like Cecil Rhodes and all these people that would talk about English, and they're like, if we could just teach English to everybody, we can control the world. I mean, that's what they said anyway.
Roiled.
But they're royal. That were their writings. Maybe that's part of it, right? It's
Could be. This spelling.
spell these. All right, I like it. I never knew that, or I didn't realize it.
Like you say se cayó, it fell.
Yeah,
You don't say I dropped it. All right. So he who attracts to himself all that is under heaven does so without effort. I love that.
yeah.
He who makes effort is not able to attract it. In other words, attract all that is under heaven. So,
Really
wow,
quick, you know why though? Because whenever you're trying to do something, you're not doing it.
you're just
Yoda.
trying.
There is no
So,
try. There is do or do not. I can't. All right. So that's
okay,
what it's all
Yoda.
about. Yeah. Good this blow is. They're making fun of Dave Chappelle. He's like, they had like a scandal break where they were like Jedi's were like, molesting people, kind of like it was like a Catholic church or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it's true. Whenever you're trying to do something, you're not in the energy, you're not in the feeling, you're not in the being of actually doing it, and the universe realizes it. So if you're doing, not doing, that means you're just doing it and you're not trying to do anything. You're just doing. And so I think everything flows in harmony with it. It's like if a tree was trying to sway against the wind the other way, it would fuck everything up. And that's kind of what we're living in now. We're living in a world where every tree thinks they know best which way to sway. And everyone's like, this is fucking chaos. But that's how we learn, because you can look at the other trees and say, that's not what I want to do. I want to sway with a rhythm because there's no effort. I don't have to put in any effort. I just do it. I just go down.
Right. You just flow.
You flow. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Let's
Wow.
go to the
We
chat.
got through those 2 verses.
Yeah. Solar flares, quiet sparky burn. Guilt is generally not constructive. Yeah.
Oh, you're still back in that
Oh
part of
yeah,
the
I
chat.
scrolled up. Yeah, that's right. I forgot I
Yeah.
did that.
It's okay. You can read some older ones.
What's up, Ray
They're
man?
not they're not that old.
Yeah, yeah. They're just a little bit up there. Spellbinding verbal agreements to profit off nouns. Yeah, exactly. Like on flow. Yeah, the flow. Exactly. Go with the flow. You don't fight against it. Wow. This was I think we
Absolutely.
had a couple of moments of pretty good realization here. Like we both had a couple like, this one. This is
Yeah. Yeah,
good
we did.
stuff.
I might have to re-listen to this one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Shout out to the chat. You guys are amazing. I mean, hanging out, just getting this like side conversation going, what we've been talking about, hanging out. It's really cool, even though we're not able to interact the whole time. I think it's good that you guys are still an amazing chat. So it's not us, it's our people, right? That make this chat so amazing. We weren't even really. Oh wow, 96 views this has already. Whoa.
That's crazy.
And the average, I'm gonna refresh, but the average, I was thinking that it had a lot of views because the average view was only like 15 minutes. The average view duration. And I know everybody in the chat was there basically the whole time talking. So I'm like, it must mean a lot of people were coming in and out. That's crazy. That's good though. Oh, even if it was for a few seconds, the people of the world got to hear our amazing voices.
Yeah, and we're not attached. We're trying to not be attached to the outcome. Like if 5 people saw it instead of 95 or whatever, great.
Mm.
Those 5 people were meant to see it.
Yeah, it's more about, well, 96 is cool because it's like a 69.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear
Like
the
a
number.
cancer.
I just knew it was in the
No, no,
90s.
no. And plus, it's interesting because we're looking at it at the point like, wow, isn't that interesting? We got the last podcast had like 50 something views, I think, and this one already has almost 100. It's like, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Good for
Isn't
us.
it?
It is. Maybe we'll pick up some subscribers. I do like 818 notes. I
Oh,
opened
we're
that.
at 818. I
Yeah,
thought
we're back.
we were at 8. We were sailing at like 822 for a while. Just go up and down. So now it's
I
down
mean, we've
even
been in
more.
the 830s. It's it's all right though. I was happy when I saw the 818 because I feel like we're in balance.
Yeah. That's a palindrome. So
Exactly.
it's nice.
Ah. All right. Well, the best, if you guys would curious on how to support us, the best way to support us is to go to More Laws, More Problems. I mean, one of the ways to support us is to go to morelawsmoreproblems.com. You could get all your oversharing needs there. Click on the oversharing tab. You could find us in podcast audio form, or you could find us video form on YouTube if you're listening just to the podcast audio version. You can go to YouTube, the Brandon Bonanza channel, and check us out. You can also support us monetarily there, several different ways. But the best way to support us, we tell you, is to just give us your attention, come hang out, subscribe, like, share, participate in the chats that we have every Thursday on our live streams or when we premiere episodes. Just be part of the crew, part of the Overshare Night hanging out slaves. I mean, fan club,
Capybara Club.
the Capybara Club. That's right. And remember, everything. We're all just trying to remember who we really are. That's what's going on right now. So
We're
if you slip up,
all trying to walk each other home. What does Ram Dass
yeah,
say?
we're all just walking each other home.
That's right.
And what's that home? Maybe that home is the acceptance and the realization and the understanding or comprehension of who we really are.
Indeed.
Indeed. All right. Well, what do you think, Sharon? Think this is a good, is it
Yep.
time? Do I ask it? Is it time for the question? All right. Well, what do we say to
Yeah.
people, Sharon?
Once you start oversharing,
Then you totally stop being a Karen.
that's right.
And remember, we're not trying to tell you how to live, everybody.
We're just trying to make you laugh, you guys. This is comedy, you know?
That's right. We're just trying to make you laugh. Joke's on you. It's all a cosmic
Ah,
comedy.
indeed.
All right. Well, until next week, guys, keep oversharing and have a great weekend. And we will see you next week. Bye bye.
Yes.
Take care.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.